Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm doing a series of instructional videos that kind of highlight key areas of policy and try to keep these videos to 3 to 5 minutes in length. So the first thing I'm going to be discussing is about manufacturing Canada at a high level view. Now, every month Stats Canada releases what we call an industry manufacturing survey, which basically keeps track of the sales of manufacturing in Canada. This particular graph shows you the different segments that Canada is involved with, right? And the reason I brought this is to highlight this is if you look at here in different things, and if I put these things in perspective on your everyday life, when you go grocery shopping, go to the beer store, go to the liquor store, drive a car, different aspects of your day-to-day life, we manufacture a lot of those goods and services in this country. Basically, if you're looking at things like automotive, we still make cars here. You're looking at aerospace, we have a huge aerospace business here. We have food processing, and well, when you go to your shelf, you see bread from Weston's. So in essence, we have manufacturing here, but it has to be competitive. And the thing that you're going to hear throughout the election campaign is Stephen Harper hates manufacturing, which is not necessarily true. If you want to see more details of it, I've done a deep dive in terms of manufacturing where I've actually quoted comments from Jason Myers, who's over the Canadian Manufacturer Association. But basically, to point out that Harper has supported manufacturing, but in a nutshell, quickly, he has control over very few policies that will drive all aspects of manufacturing. He can control trade and investment deals. That's a federal policy, federal law. He can control some of the tax policies, which is the corporate rate and some of the issues with the Income Tax Act. He can control some funding to the skills and trades in terms of the social transfer. But he can't control key areas that drive areas like raw materials. That's mining and extraction area. He can't control hydro rates, which is another area as part of overhead. And he can't control labor rates, which are set by union contracts. So in that sense, you can blame Stephen Harper for a lot of things, but he can only do certain things and to help promote business. And one of the areas he does focuses on is innovation, which he's set up funds. But I'll go in more specific details on policy in the next slide. Now, if you sat down and walked in and talked to a small, medium, or large size manufacturer, the 6 areas that they're going to tell you that are critical to them are access to market, and that's both imports, or both domestic and the export market, tax policies, whether the tax policies are going to impact me from payroll taxes to cap and trade to corporate taxes, innovation, how am I going to have access to either funds to help support bringing new ideas to market, or whether there are R&D programs available for me to leverage. Infrastructure, this is more about port and supply chain management from highways to federal ports to get my goods to market to customers. Access to capital, this is more related to small business, where if you're trying to start up, the hardest thing to do is get access to capital, loans, and grants to get your business off the ground, or invest in equipment to help mechanize yourself to bring your businesses a little bit more modernization into it. Skills development, this is getting into the welders, it's getting into the robotic areas, it's getting into anything else in terms of advanced manufacturing that we need to support through the skilled trades, and usually that's driven by both provincial policy and federal commitments to a certain degree through the social transfers. Now, that being said, if you look at the policies of Mulcair quickly, he doesn't really support trade deals. He's more about protectionist, and in essence, he's actually incoherent with his strategy. If you go do some searches on Unifor, he's basically come out and basically said he supports certain funds like automotive aerospace, but he hasn't really looked at other aspects of manufacturing in Canada. And manufacturing in Canada is very dynamic here. There's many sectors or segments. So Mulcair tends to be narrow focused. The second point quickly is his tax policies are incoherent. He'll take away the corporate taxes, or actually increase corporate taxes by 1.5%. He'll bring in a CPP enhancement, which is a payroll tax. He'll bring in a carbon trade process, which will add in more cost to manufacturing. But the issue is, his solution is to handle innovation funds to manufacturers. So he taxes them one hand and gives them an innovation fund. So basically, he lacks a clear strategy of how he would really support manufacturing, because it isn't one policy. Innovation, he's in line with Harper. He supports innovation, but he's only really talked about aerospace and automotive, and maybe they're about 15% or 20% maybe of our manufacturing sale. What about the other 80%? Infrastructure, he does talk about it, but he never brings out port expansion. And I'll give you a good example. Montreal and Prince Rupert have seen federal money help expand those ports to be able to better support exports, which are critical. He doesn't talk about access to capital, which is small business loans. And in skills development, he's been very coy about that. He's only really said that he'll work with unions. Justin Trudeau, on the other hand, said he does support trade and investment deals, but if you go back to history with the Liberal Party, typically they've done 4 deals. So what do they really support? Well, they typically haven't really pushed the pro-trade or investment policies. They're in line in terms of things like CPP and cap and trade, which are tax increases. What he doesn't support is an increased corporate taxes, which is fine. Innovation, other than talking about green energy, he said nothing about the brick and mortars. However, you can go out and do a Google search on him. Justin Trudeau changes his position depending on his audience. Earlier in this year, in 2015, he went 2 specific markets. One was London, one was Windsor. London's a huge automotive area tied to Cami, Toyota, all that around them, through Woodstock and Cambridge. And so they have a lot of auto parts manufacturers in London. He basically told that audience that they should get away from manufacturing. 2 or 3 days later, he was in Windsor and said Harper's not doing enough to support automotive, which isn't true. He's got automotive innovation funds, and he supported investments in Honda, Toyota, Ford, and all that, other companies to support things. So that's not what you're hearing. Infrastructure, he wants to expand $60 billion more in infrastructure, but he hasn't been clear on how much that will go into support supply chain management. And that supply chain management will be a better return on investment if you're going to spend on infrastructure, so that's critical, but he hasn't talked about that. Skill training, he just brought it up recently that he's going to spend money, but again, he's incoherent in terms of who's going to run this. It looks like he wants to use the model done in Ontario, which is almost support the skilled trade schools, and we've seen how they've been very successful in Ontario, and they have not. So, in essence, NDP and Trudeau's policies are too narrow focused, will do nothing in terms of expand areas of manufacture. If anything, they'll hurt it more. The only party that seems to be able to understand all aspects of manufacturing is Stephen Harper. He's looking at trade deals. He's looking to keep the growth of taxation costs down. He's not looking at major increases in taxation. He's looking more and more ways to support innovation. He'll continue to do that through funds and other options. He's looking at infrastructure, key port expansions, as I mentioned, Prince Rupert and Montreal he's made investments in. He's also talking about Sydney as well. So he's actually looking at areas to expand those areas to better support exports. But the ironic thing is a lot of these areas, like Montreal, are liberal held seats in a lot of those areas, or Prince Rupert, which Nathan Collins over, or Cape Breton, which is a huge liberal NDP area. So in essence, Harper's gone into those areas and supported it. Yet the same people that you're voting in support in terms of supporting liberal or NDP policies, these guys have said little in terms of exports. He's relooked at the small business loans to help better access capital. That was one of the things he talked about earlier this year. And he is looking at for new loans and skills development, continues to review that area. Now, it's very critical when you're starting to have discussions with the Mulcaires and the Trudeaus of the world to get beyond their rhetoric, to actually look at the substance of what they're saying. And if you don't want to believe my video here, what you can do is go out and look at basically statements made by the private sector, from Manufacturing Association and the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and they'll give you a clear indication what their membership want. If you want a strong economy, you want something diverse that will respond and adapt, then you need to look at seriously what leadership you want to come in. It isn't Mulcair and it isn't Trudeau.